chillin' in the back to make it free. Bitch, I'm fresher than a prince. Whoa. She fell in love once again. Once I hit him, repeated, I'm moving on to friends. I be leaving them salty on Twitter saying, girl, I'm in. When I'm finished, she get ghosted, game over, bitch.
My roommate sold his soul to the devil. I know you fucking lying. Let's get into it.
Story time about my old roommate who sold his soul to the devil and told me he did. Forewarning, don't watch this video at night. It's been 10 years since I met this person and it still freaks me out to think about. But I figure with it being spooky month, October, I'll share this story. People close to me know about it, but I've never like publicly put it on the internet before.
Oh my God, I am actually scared because I'm by myself and it's dark. It's dark. And on top of that, she actually has like pictures and stuff. So I'm like, oh, what are we going to see? But I'm freaking out. Stuff like this really scares me, even though I'm into it. So just like a weird thing. I'm going back and forth. But anyways, let's get into it.
That said, this experience definitely made me feel like people can and do sell their souls. And it's one of the reasons I believe in God and light work and positive things and operate from that perspective with everything that I do and talk about. Okay, so I met him, we're gonna call him Dominic for the sake of the story. I met him 10 years ago. I was at a casting call for an MTV reality show in Chicago where I was living at the time. And at
I wonder what MTV show they're talking about. I'm so curious.
this casting call, there were a ton of people. So they separated us into groups of 20 and they brought us around this big table and they were asking us individual questions about our personality, our perspectives, things like that. There was one guy sitting across from me at the table and I noticed that he was like noticing me every time I talked. He would kind of nod. And then I noticed that every time he talked, I kind of felt myself agreeing with the things that he was saying. So we kind of became like allies around this big group of tables. And at the end of this big group interview, the casting director called this guy, Dominic, me, and then another girl from our group into another room. And he was like, we loved your personalities. We think you guys might be a good fit for the show. We want to keep this interview going. So you're going to just have to wait here. And then we're going to do some one-on-one interviews. So it's the three of us in this room and the guy leaves. And while we're waiting for our one-on-one interviews, Dominic and I start talking more. And I realize that we actually do have a lot in common and we have a lot of the same stances on things, namely spirituality. And we ended up having this really deep conversation about like the nature of reality and spirituality and things like that. It was a really crazy conversation to have the first time that you meet somebody. I feel like we really just like connected on like a super deep level. Like it wasn't just like, how are you? Oh yeah, the weather, blah, blah, blah. Like it was a different kind of conversation, but it was a positive one, or so I thought. So this goes on for like an hour and then finally they call Dominic into the room. He does his one-on-one interview. He leaves. We don't talk again that day. And we hadn't exchanged information or anything like that. So I'm just like, wow, what a crazy conversation. What a crazy first meeting of someone. And we leave. A few weeks go by and I went to a music video shoot. It was a hip hop artist. I was there with my friend and we were getting our makeup done when a guy walked in the room, another actor in the video. And when he walked in, I thought that he looked familiar. And then I realized,
can we just say that Dominic sounds a lot like demonic?
It was Dominic from this other casting call. And like, I got excited to see him. Like, it wasn't like a romantic kind of interest that I had in him. Like, he was very attractive, but it was more just that connection that I felt like we had as like a friendship or whatever. But I saw him and I was like, oh my God, hey, like we met at this MTV casting interview. And he was also like immediately excited to see me. It seemed like he was like, oh my God, like I can't believe you're here. Like it seemed like fate. So as the music video shoot goes on, like he and I are just like instant besties. Like we're having these crazy conversations, like in between takes, we're out in the parking lot, like talking. And that day we did exchange information. So it was like phone numbers and emails. And he lived pretty far from me. He didn't live in the actual city. He lived like 2 hours away. So
let me guess. He lived in a very small town or a very small city called Satan.
He wasn't around much, but we texted and we emailed a lot. We emailed because we were having such deep and long conversations that texting didn't really do it justice. Like we would send each other basically letters. And this texting email relationship kind of went on for like 2 years. We did hang out a couple times when he was in the city. We would get coffee and there was nothing weird that ever happened in this time frame. I just considered him like a really good friend. Neither of us ended up getting that MTV show, but he did have some successes when it came to other acting pursuits. And I think it's interesting to note at this point that at the time, both of us were pursuing some kind of acting career path, right? I was just more doing it for fun and because I could and because it came easy. But I do think it's interesting to note that we always hear about people in Hollywood that are like selling their souls in order for fame and money and success and all those things. And I just think it's weird that like this is what we were pursuing when I met.
Are we really that shocked when it comes to Hollywood and spirituality or rituals?
At this person. Okay. So again, no red flags at this point, like just a deep friendship. 2 years after I meet him, I decided I was going to move to Nashville. I moved here with a friend of mine from Chicago. I wasn't really doing music videos or anything anymore. I actually moved here and I started working at a nonprofit doing an AmeriCorps program in environmental sustainability. And Dominic and I kept in touch when I lived here, but we didn't talk nearly as much as we used to. So the first year of me living in Nashville goes by, and my roommate who I moved here with decided that she was going to move out and get her own place. Like, fine, no big deal. So I needed to find a roommate. And I hadn't mentioned it really to anyone yet besides our immediate friend group in Nashville that I was looking. And out of the blue, about a week after she tells me that she's going to move out of our house that we were renting, I get an email from Dominic, and he was just like, hey, how are you? Like, checking in. I hope Nashville's going well. I was just letting you know I've actually been thinking about moving there. I think I'm going to. And I was like immediately excited because, again, it seemed like fate. I'm just like, wow, like, here's my roommate. So I fire back. I'm like, this is crazy. I think you should move. I have actually a room opening up if you want.
Seriously, what are the odds of that? Coincidence? I don't know. It just seems to line up too perfectly.
Move in here. You can come check it out if you want. He's like, I mean, that would be great. Like, when do you need a roommate? I'm like, at the end of the month. And he was like, I can probably move in next month. Like, let's do it. I'm like, this is awesome. So my roommate moves out and I get the room cleaned up and Dominic moves in. And everything was fine for like maybe 3 months. He got a job right away. He was clean. He was a good roommate, like respectful. And again, this was like a completely platonic relationship. So I really enjoyed his company. Like I would come home from work and he would be home and we would just like have these sometimes really deep conversations, sometimes really light conversations, but again, pretty normal for a roommate situation. And then on month 3 of him living there, things started getting really weird, really dark, and really creepy, really fast.
Oh, all right, y'all. Fasten your seatbelts. This is it. She's about to get into it. We just needed a little bit of a backstory. She's painting a picture for us. So we're about to get into what's about to go down. Ooh, hope y'all ready. This is it. Don't get scared now.
It was probably around this time of year, like October. And we both worked that day. He was in the living room watching TV, and I was in the kitchen, like making something to eat, like a stew or a chili or something. But I remember I had like a big stock pot on the stove. I was like, drinking wine, just kind of like in my element. And I felt like somebody, watching me. So I turn around, and Dominic is standing in the doorway of the kitchen. And I was just like, oh, hey, the food will be ready like as soon as you can have some. And he just looks me dead in the eye and he goes, I sold my soul to the devil. And I laughed. But that was not fucking thing for somebody to say, right? So it's like, what are you talking about? I sold my soul to the devil. I'm not joking. And like
I sold my soul to the devil. I admit it's a crappy deal. At least it came with a few toys like a happy meal. Yo, I'm sorry. It just made me think of that Kanye song. Continue.
It really just creeped me out. It rubbed me the wrong way. I like felt myself get chills. I felt my like hands tighten around the pot I was holding. But obviously, like, what would you say in that situation? Like, somebody that you've known for a few years tells you this. Like, so I just thought it was a joke. And I was like, well, what'd you get? Like, eternal youth, love, success, like what? And he does not smile at all. Like, he's still just like staring a hole through me. He was like, no, none of that, something better. But I can't tell you what it is because it negates the terms of the deal. But it was worth it at the time. And I was like, okay, Dominic.
Oh, no. I'd be like, what the hell you mean by that? Like, what? Explain yourself.
Like, whatever. And he's like, yeah, I just thought you should know since we're like living together.
What?
The devil never just wants one soul. And he literally does this creepy smile. Like, it's burned into my memory. Like, I wish I could unremember this. He smiles this weird, creepy, toothy smile. And then he just turns around and goes in the living room and like resumes watching TV. So I'm like, so I like stop what I'm doing and I start texting my friend. I'm like, hey, I want to get out of my house. Like, can you meet me?
I don't blame her. Yeah, I'm gonna need to call somebody up. I need backup.
She's like, yeah, let's just go to like this place down the street. Like, I'll meet you. I'm like, cool. I have this wild thing to tell you. And she had met Dominic, so like she knew that he was like kind of like eclectic, but
I'm getting psychopath vibes, serial killer vibes. Yeah.
But like I was just like, I need somebody else's opinion on this. So I go to meet her. We stay out for a few hours. It was mostly just because I didn't want to be around him. Like, I didn't know what to say after somebody tells you this, you know? And when I came home that night, he was like asleep in his room, like everything was fine. So I just like went to bed, just pretended like it was a joke, ignored it. That's what my friend had convinced me, basically, that he was just playing like a weird joke. So I was like, okay. So I go to sleep. The next day happens, nothing weird. He doesn't acknowledge it. I don't acknowledge it. Like, everything's seemingly normal. And then the scratching started. So about a week later, I was laying in my bed. I have a cat. It was dark, okay? The cat is in bed with me, and I hear this like scratching.
Red
like,
flags,
like,
yo.
I don't know if you can hear that.
What? Ooh. But that ASMR though.
But that's what it sounded like. It sounded like there was an animal in the walls. We were renting an older house, so it wasn't that weird for me to think like a raccoon got in the attic, or like there were maybe mice or something. Like, I don't know.
This is like the beginning of a movie when you're about to be like, off, okay? Like, no.
So my cat noticed it too, and he was like staring dead at my closet. So I get up out of bed, I turn on the light, like I go to my closet, and I'm listening, and I hear the scratching again. I look in my closet, can't figure it out, but I notice it's coming from like the back corner, like the back wall of the closet, which the other side of that was the living room. So I just like bang on the wall, and the scratching stops. And I go back and I lay down, and then it starts again. And so I'm like, what is going on? I wasn't really that freaked out. Again, I thought it was an animal. So I get up out of bed, I turn on the lights again, and I go out into the living room, and it's dark, but I see a figure crouched down against the living room wall.
Oh, no, 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 no. No.
Like by the bottom of the wall. And I realize it's Dominic. And he's crouched down, and he's
What the hell is wrong with this dude?
scratching the wall outside of my closet. So I'm like annoyed at this point. Like I flip on the lights. I'm like, what are you doing? And he like does this weird creepy smile again. And he's like, I just wanted to prepare you because sometimes he likes to check in. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Who?
He's like, this time it was me, but next time it might not be. So just like be prepared.
That's it. Yo, I'm getting tired of Dominic already. What? That's it? What the hell is going on?
And then he goes, okay, good night. And he walks back into his room and closes the door. I'm gonna have to make part 2. I'm so sorry, but I promise you this story gets even effing creepy. This is part 2 of the story about how my old roommate told me he sold his soul to the devil and then started acting very erratically and strangely. I was gonna post the second part last night, but then my baby started crying and I was dealing with him, and then I went to sleep. I didn't expect the video to blow up, so I'm sorry to keep you guys waiting. Also, if you don't like all the details, just hold on the screen and click 2 times speed. I already covered how I met him, how he ended up moving in, and then how he told me he sold his soul and started scratching.
Oh, I'm getting creeped out, y'all. Shit. I'm getting so creeped out.
My walls. I felt like all those details were important. So the next few things that happened, I don't necessarily remember the order in which they happened. I just know that they all happened in the span of a few weeks after he was like, I caught him scratching at my walls. The first really weird thing was that one day I woke up and I went outside, and right outside my porch on the sidewalk, like leading out to the main street, was an entire severed deer leg. There was no gore or anything, but it looked probably fresh because there was still fur like completely covering it. I
What the hell?
was trying to rationalize in my head how it ended up there. I thought maybe that an animal had picked it up and like dropped it there, but then, you know, also I was like, well, why didn't it eat it? When I asked Dominic about the deer leg, he just kind of brushed it off and was like, I don't know how that got there. I still don't know if he was involved in that at all. The next thing that happened is he told me that he was gonna have a friend come and stay. And again, at this point, he was paying rent, was clean, was working, like, and he had only acted strange a few times. So like, I don't know. I mean, we've all lived with people, I think, that have been weird in some way or another.
Weird? This dude is beyond weird.
And I really didn't want to go through the process of like telling him he needed to move and then finding another roommate. I mean, would you? Like, I was broke at the time. I didn't have any extra money. I didn't want to potentially kick him out, not be able to find anybody, and then have to cover that other part of rent. So like, nothing that traumatic had happened yet, right? I just thought this was some weird elaborate joke. So he doesn't tell me the details of his friend that's gonna come stay, other than it's a girl, she's from out of state, and she's gonna stay for a week just visiting. So she shows up one day when he's at work. There's a knock at the door. He told me she was coming that day. He just didn't tell me what time. I answer the door. She's like, is Dominic here? And she's got like 3 giant duffel bags, and she's dressed in like really old clothing. Like I would go as far as to say that maybe she like made them herself. And she spoke very strangely. Like, I can't remember specific examples of things she said, but like it would be something like along the lines of like, if I spilled water, she would say something like, lament not o'er water spilled from the jug. Like, it was almost like
What?
old English, but that was the entire way that she talked. So anyway, I tell her that Dominic's at work and he's not there right now. And she says something along the lines of like, oh, I shall await his arrival in his quarters or something.
And I would be like, you there, creepy girl. Ought thou get the hell out of my house? The hell?
And I'm like, okay. And so I show her his room and she goes in there, closes the door, and like does not come out. And he gets home from work. I tell her he's there, or she's there. He goes in his room, closes the door. Don't see them. And when I mean I don't see them, like, she did not come out of his room the entire time that she was staying with us for like a week. And he would only come out to use the bathroom. But I didn't even see her come out to like use the bathroom shower. And we had one bathroom. There was none like attached to his room or anything. So unless she was sneaking out of the window to use the restroom, like, I don't know how she was going. Until the last day that she was there. So she was staying like one more night. And I came home from work. I think I went out after work because I got home and it was nighttime. And I heard this weird howling from the backyard. So I'm like, what is going on? So I walked around the side of the house to the backyard and I see they have like a fire going. And before I can even say anything, I see her and she's basically got her entire arm like in the fire. And he's just like sitting silently in a lawn chair, staring at the fire, like watching her like basically burn herself. Ran over because I thought she was hurt or something was going on. And she just takes her arm out of the fire and just sits there and looks at me. And I look and like her clothing is like singed, but she doesn't, I mean, her arm looks fine. So I was like, what is going on here? And Dominic is staring at me and he's like, don't worry, it's just a joke, just go inside. Like,
Just a joke? I would have been like, girl, what the hell is going on? But how you do that though? You know?
she's leaving tomorrow. And she just
Like,
looks at me and
what
she's
the
like,
hell?
I appreciate your hospitality, or like something weird. So again, I'm like texting my friend. I'm like, I need to get out of here. I need to fill you in on all this stuff that's going on, because at this point, like, I just didn't even want to be around him. Like, so I go out that night with my friend. She basically convinces me that I need to tell him that he needs to move out, because at this point it's too weird. I'm too shaken up. Like, I never want to be there when he's around. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to tell him that he needs to move. Like, I'm going to find another roommate. So the next day he leaves with the girl. I don't ever see her again. And then he actually started staying out more, which was awesome. It was like an answer to my prayers. Like, he would stay out for like 3, 4, 5, 6 days at a time. He would come home, he would go in his room, he would shut the door, he would go to sleep, and then he would leave in the morning. So that was like the ideal setup for a roommate, right? Like, we all want somebody that's never really there. So I'm like, maybe I don't need to ask him to leave. Like, maybe he just won't be here. And then there's one night I was dating my now husband at the time, and we were sitting out in my like driveway, just chilling, like hanging out. It was a pretty nice night out, although it was like late fall, I'd say. And we're just like talking, and we see this figure coming up the street and like walking toward the house, and it's like wearing a hood and whatever, and it stops in the driveway, and I realize it's Dominic, and he starts walking closer to us, and he looks like dirty. Like, his face is just all dark, and as he gets closer to us, I realize that it's like blood and dirt and like scratches. And I'm like, holy crap, like, he got jumped. Like, that's what it looked like. And I like stand up, I'm like, are you okay? Like, what happened? And he just like shrugs, and he's like, it's fine. Like,
Yo, I'm getting so tired of Dominic sitting there keep on saying, oh no, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Like, what the fuck, dude? No, it's not fine. You need to give me some answers.
I'm gonna go to bed. So he just goes in the house, and I'm like, what is going on? So my husband at the time convinces me that he's on schmugs. I can't say it, but he's on schmugs, because these are all behaviors of someone that's like
That makes sense. That makes sense. Psychopath and smugs. That makes sense.
dealing with some kind of addiction, right? Like, staying out all the time, not leaving his room, acting erratically, saying weird things. So I'm like, okay, he's on schmugs. I'm like, he definitely needs to go. And like, we're kind of talking about it out in the driveway, and then Dominic comes back out, and he's just like asking about our day. Like, he still has all the stuff on his face, like,
what?
Acting normal. And he's like telling us about his day. He's like, oh, I went to work, and then you won't believe it, I found this weird party on my walk home, and I went in, and they had a secret dungeon. Like, he's like telling us all these crazy details, and as he's telling us this, he starts like contorting his body. Like, I can't even do the moves. It was like yoga on steroids. Like, he starts like doing these stretches, but like twisting his arms out of like, it almost looked like they were coming out of the socket.
Shut
so
up. No,
so
he
like,
didn't.
Do you need to go to the hospital? Like,
Yo.
I think you need to go to the hospital. And he's still stretching at this point.
Why
he's
is
on the
this
ground,
guy
and
still
he's just,
around?
Like,
He
doing
needs
these
to be
weird,
gone.
like, contorted motions. And he like laughs, and he's like, no, I don't need to go to the hospital. Like, I'm fine. So we decide that night, like, I go to my then boyfriend's house, and we decide that the next day I'm going to ask him to move out. I didn't work that next day, but I stayed out all day because I was just delaying the inevitable. I come home, and I find Dominic sitting on the couch whispering to himself in like just weird non-words.
No.
So I'm like, F this. I was like, we need to talk. I was like, your behavior is unacceptable. I would like you to find another place to live. Like, you can have till the end of the month. It was like maybe the 5th or 6th of the month. So he had a couple weeks. I was like, you need to go. And he just stares at me, like doesn't say anything, just stares. And he gets up and he goes to his room and he closes the door. And I'm like, okay, great. So he wakes up the next morning. He acts like nothing happened. I'm like, hey, we really need to talk about what I said last night. Like, you need to find a place to live. Do you have any options? Do you know anybody that needs a roommate? I can even help you find a place. And he's like, well, I think we can work something out. Like, I think I should just stay. Like, I need to be here to protect you. I'm like, no, I don't need any protection. Like, you need to go.
The only person I need protecting from is you.
Oh, like, this is not working out. And I lied. And I was like, I actually have somebody that's going to move in at the end of the month. And from that point, he starts like kissing my butt. Like, he is trying to do everything that he can in order to stay. Like, he's like offering to do my laundry, bringing home like extra food. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, you're not going to manipulate me. Like, you need to move. So fast forward up till the end of that month, he's supposedly about to leave. Like, I was very clear all month that he needed to find a place.
I would be so scared to put him out at this point. Like, dude is creepy.
At that point, he said that he didn't really have a place, but I really didn't care. And I just kept saying like, hey, my new roommate's moving in, in a few days. So hope you're ready to go. I'm in bed and I heard whispering. Okay, I opened my eyes and Dominic is standing at the foot of my bed with complete darkness. So I screamed because obviously you don't expect him to be standing at the end of your bed.
Shut the front door. No, he's not standing at the end of your bed. What? Yo, when I tell you I would be sleeping with a goddamn gone jiu-jitsu knife or something under my pillow, I ain't lying, because oh my gosh, even if you don't believe any of this stuff or believe in that, at the end of the day, this is still a stranger that you let into your house that is already showing signs of weirdness, red flags. So what comes to my mind automatically is a literal psychopath, okay, serial killer, just saying.
In the middle of the night. And after I saw him, he just literally just leaves the room and goes into his room and closes the door. So I call my boyfriend. I'm like, I'm coming over. I'm not going to stay at this house until he's gone. Okay.
Why aren't we sleeping with the door locked? Sleeping with a knife? Like, what the fuck, girl? What the fuck?
The night before he's supposed to move out, I'm sitting at the kitchen table. He comes home from work. I was writing something. I don't know what, maybe a grocery list. And he sits down at my feet on the floor. And he grabs my leg and he starts kissing up my leg. It was so freaking weird, you guys. He was massaging my thigh. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I don't have anywhere to go. I need to stay here. I'm like, you're not staying here. You're moving out tomorrow. That's the plan. You're moving out. If you're not gone, I'm going to have to call somebody to come and get you because you're not going to stay here anymore. It's enrages him. There was a shelf with a bunch of books and glassware pushed up against the wall, and he just knocks the shelf over as he's walking.
Why aren't your boyfriend staying with you or something, or what the hell? Seriously.
Out, and I'm like, out later, and he's like, I'm sorry. I just don't want to move. I don't want to have to find a place. I'm like, you've had all month. I don't know what else to tell you. He goes, okay, I do have a place I can go. Will you walk me over there? I'm like, sure. I'll walk you over there. It was a few blocks away from where we lived.
Walk you?
So we leave the house. I was just happy. He literally.
I'm sorry, girl. This chick, in the beginning, I was kind of okay with her, but now this is just stupidity. What the hell? You're gonna walk with this dude in the middle of the night to wherever after you just put him out, and the dude is unstable on top of that? Girl, you are bold, okay? You are bold. You about to walk with this dude in the middle of the night by yourself. That is a no. That is a hell no.
I really just packed a couple bags to sell everything else of mine. I'm like, okay, you can come back and get it if you want. He's like, no, I don't want it. Just sell it. So we're walking over to this next house, and it's probably 10 o'clock at night. And it wasn't a busy street, but it was, busy enough. It was a neighborhood. And we're walking, and there's this car oncoming. I see it down a little ways in the road, and it starts driving close. And Dominic is in the middle of a conversation with me about how he's moving in with this new person who he told me didn't exist an hour ago. And as the car is coming over, he just walks out in front of the car. This video is ending. I'm posting the next part right now, I promise.
What? Oh my god.
Final part about my old roommate who told me he sold his soul to the devil and then started acting
crazy. All right, last part,
so
y'all.
I'm walking him to this house that he says he's going to be staying at, he runs in front of a car. And I'm talking about he waited until it was as close as possible and he just runs out into the street. And the car luckily swerved and didn't hit him, but he just stands there and he's smiling at it. And he turns as the car passes him and he's just smiling at the car. And the driver obviously is freaked out, gets out of the car and he's like, "What are you doing?" And he's just smiling at him. And the guy was like freaked out enough. And he's like,
Heck
"You need to
yeah.
get some medical help." And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, oh my God, like I'm making the right decision to ask him to leave. Like, I don't know what's going on. I'm like, what are you doing? And I fully believe, like, the way that he did it, he intended to get hit and unalive himself. So at the end of this street is where this house is that he says he's going to be living at now. And the house is dark. Like, there's nobody home. He knocks on the door, there's nobody home. And he's just sits on the porch with his things. And he's like, "I'll just wait here until they get home." And I was like, okay, like, not even going to ask any questions. Like, at this point, I'm going home. So I go home. I go to sleep that night. Everything's fine. He doesn't come back. And I don't ever see him again, but things kept happening. I found another roommate. It was a friend of a friend. This other guy named, we'll just call him Jake. And Jake moves in, and I think all of my problems are over. And then one night I'm in bed, and I see a shadow outside my window. Like, it was definitely human shaped, definitely a person. So, I went outside, there's nobody there, and I go back to bed, and I see the shadow again. So I'm like, I'm calling the cops. Like, I don't know what else to do. So I call the cops. They said, okay, we're going to send somebody out. 2 cops arrive, like an hour, maybe less than an hour later. And they're looking around my house with, like, flashlights and stuff. They're like, we don't see anybody. And I actually got really mad that day because one of the cops asked me, he's like, "Are you sure it wasn't a bunny rabbit?" And I just, like, didn't think that was funny.
Oh, bunny rabbit?
Literally,
after she just said it was human figure.
And he's like, okay, well, you know, we'll just keep an eye out and call us if you need anything. So they leave. Don't say anything again that night. Like, a week later, my neighbor comes up to me as I'm, like, leaving for work, and she's like, "Hey, I don't want to freak you out or anything, but I saw somebody come out of your garage at, like, 4 a.m. this morning."
What?
She's like, "My husband was going fishing, like, I was helping him load up the truck, and, like, we just saw somebody, like, open up the garage a little bit and, like, roll out from underneath it." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" We did have a garage on the property. I never used it. It was included in my lease, but it was gross. Like, there were spiders and snakes and stuff, so I just, like, never ever went in there. And I hadn't been in there in months. So I open up the garage, and there is a mattress, a bunch of, like, to-go food containers, and anything that was in there that was mine had been, like, completely trashed. Like, there was, like, writing on the walls, all these weird symbols. So I called my landlord. I had him come change the locks, and I went to the store and I bought a pew-pew. And this actually freaked Jake out, my roommate, enough to where he came up to me and he was like, "I don't really feel comfortable living here. Like, there's a lot of bad energy, and I just, like, I can feel it. I felt it since I moved in. I just didn't want to say anything because I thought I was just being crazy. But, like, he's like, there's bad energy in this room." So I'm like, great. So Jake's getting ready to move out. I'm trying to find another roommate again. And as Jake's trying to figure out
this is creepy.
a new living situation, I'm at work one night, and he texts me, and he's like, "The roof caved in." This is the video that he sent me.
No.
Okay, so the full roof did not cave in, but you can see the ceiling absolutely did. That was my cat. And this was Dominic's old room.
That was his room. Yo.
Okay, and this is after he moved out, but, like, look at inside of the...
Yo, do y'all see that? It's hand. It's like a handprint.
Like, that is fully a handprint. So I texted my landlord. He attributed it to water damage, but, like, to this day, I still don't know.
How would that get
Jake
there?
ended up moving out. Dominic kept, like, emailing and texting me. I eventually blocked his number. He still does text me. It's been 6 years since I lived with him, but he still does text me and, like, email me from random numbers and email addresses every, I don't know, 6 months to a year, I would say. And as soon as I get them, I just block. To this day, I don't know if it was schmugs. I don't know if it was, like, mental illness. I don't know if he sold his soul. That's just what he told me. And then as soon as he told me that, all this stuff started happening. So, friendly reminder, vet your roommates, and you never really know who you're living with.
Yeah, vet your roommates indeed, because that was crazy. Damn. Towards the end there, she kind of pissed me off. I ain't gonna lie. She was being kind of, I hate to say it, but she was being kind of stupid there towards the end. Like, what the girl? Like, this dude is already giving you signs of weirdness. Like, anywho, that's all I got for you guys today. Peace and chicken grease, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.